Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together. Welcome home to USA.
Sorry about that, everybody. Live TV, sometimes mistakes are made, and I just made a couple. So it's great to have you here. Sorry about the delay here in the beginning, but great to have you anyway on You as a Whole, Body, Mind, and Soul. I'm Justin MIRIGLIANI. Wow, I just noticed I blend in with my shirt. All right, we'll take that. So to get serious, we're going to talk about dating and disclosure. What is honest? What is not honest? What should we be doing when we're in a situation where we meet somebody? And I'm going to give you a little bit about what I have noticed. I was married for 20 years and now out in the dating world again. It's been a long time. And I went on a date, I guess it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And as most people know, I have an ostomy. I have an ileostomy. I lost my colon in 2015 because of ulcerative colitis and a precancerous condition. And I get advice from both sides. Some people say, well, you should be very upfront about that and tell people ahead of time. So if you go on a date, before you even get to the date, when you talk to the person and give them your number or connect with them in any way, let them know that you have an ostomy. And then I get people on the other side of the spectrum and they say, well, you know what? Don't give them a reason not to give you a chance. Get to know them first. After you know them well enough, then you could let them know that you have an ostomy. I don't know that one is right and one is wrong. I'm not sure. I think those are two good options, but it depends on what you feel. Now, I went out on a date, like I said, about 3 weeks ago, and I did not mention the ostomy at all prior to the date. We just went out and we were having dinner and everything was going well. We were having a nice conversation. I'm not saying I was ready to propose, but certainly I thought this has the potential to be possibly another date, just hang out, whatever. And I mean, it was good enough that she was eating off my plate. I thought that was, at least a sign that there was some attraction and some comfortability um, during that date. And anyway, she asked me about my charity, and she said, I know you have a charity. Why is your charity such a big deal to you? Why that particular uh, area about Crohn's, colitis, and ostomy patients? And I said, well, because I'm an ostomy patient. I'm not going to lie. What am I going to say? Why is it important to me? And make up a story? I can't do that. So I told her, and again, everything seemed fine. Oh, that's really great. And, the whole conversation that you think you'd have when you tell somebody. Now, in the back of my mind, I wondered if that was going to be a problem or not. And it didn't seem like one. Everything seemed fine. We ordered food, we ate. And then she said, oh, I got a text from my son. And my son told me the dog threw up. I said, oh man, that's not good. And she was telling me, yeah, I just told him to clean it up. And I said, okay, I didn't think anything of it. And then her phone rang. And she said, I got to take this call. I said, sure. So she got up, she took the call, and she came back and she said, oh, the dog is throwing up multiple times. And my son is really worried. I said, go. I said, just take off. Don't worry about it. And she said, you sure? I could stay while you have your dessert. I said, no, 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 no. I said, just go. We could do it another time. No big deal. And never heard from her again. There could be other reasons that she decided that she didn't want to continue on with the date. My gut feeling is that it was the ostomy that caused her to think twice. Honestly, it bothered me a little bit because, you're sitting in a restaurant and everybody knows what happened. I mean, you could see that she left, and at the time, I wasn't sure if it was true or not. I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt. If you get one over on me, congratulations, you win. But I thought perhaps she was being honest and she really had a sick dog, and a 12-year-old son taking care of a dog that's throwing up is, you don't want to do that. You don't want to leave a kid in that. But obviously, when I messaged her again, I didn't hear back from her. So what do I do? I hesitate to say it this way because it does sound like I'm pumping my own tires, but I am a public figure. I'm not a celebrity by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm a public figure. If you go onto if you go onto Google, or if you go onto AI and you type in Justin Mirigliani, you're going to pretty much know the whole story. You're going to know the story of my battle with inflammatory bowel disease. You're going to know the story of my fight with mental illness, depression, anxiety, and OCD. I don't have the luxury to be secretive. I made that choice a long time ago. I'm not going to cry, and I'm not going to ask people to say, well, poor Justin. No, not at all. And there are benefits from doing it too. The benefits are people like last week, somebody from Michigan said, I looked up hockey players and ostomy because her father, who's in his 70s, was a hockey player up until just a little while ago when he got sick and he needed to have an ileostomy like me. And her father literally told her and her family, can we stop medications? Can we stop treating the diseases that I have? Because he's got some other medical ailments that need to be taken care of. Otherwise, he won't survive. And he asked the family, is it possible that I could just stop the medications and just let nature take its course and I die? And they were like, why? Why would you want to do that? He said, because I don't want to live with an ostomy. I don't want to be alive. I'm never going to play hockey again. I'm 70 whatever years old, 72, whatever it was. And living with an ostomy is not worth it. I'm not going to live. So I get a call last week, and no, not a call. She sent a message on Facebook Messenger, and she said, "Look, I saw that you're a hockey player, that you have an ostomy, and I really think my dad needs to hear from somebody who's been in that position." I said, "Yeah, all right. I'd be happy to, and I'm always going to help people with that." I'm part of Rolf and Erska's Team Hope, and that's what we do. We give people hope, and it's the same verbiage that I gave when I was in that position. I don't want to live with this. I do not want to live with this. Now, I won't go into the whole story of what I'm going to talk about with this gentleman with the ostomy, but because I've been open, because I put myself out there, that's the only reason why I'm able to connect with these people. And I do connect with people from around the world. It's not every day, it's not even every week, but it might be twice a month. Whether it's in the continental United States or outside, a couple people from Canada, uh, some people in the UK, and it's gratifying. It does take away some of the sting of having to have gone through all of that, and then the upshot of it is having the ostomy. So my way of fighting back is to help people get through it. I don't have, as I said, I don't have the luxury of hiding anything, nor do I want to hide anything. And that was a decision. Now, is it costing me some? I don't want to say opportunities. Is it costing me some relationships? Is it costing me dating relationships? Hey, Claire just joined us. Good to see you. She supports every week, so we really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it certainly does put me behind the eight ball in certain situations. There are going to be women that are just going to say, "Look, I can't deal with that. I'm not going to be able to deal with it." So what I did was on my dating profile, I use Facebook dating. I put who I was. I didn't put just my first name. They recommend you put your first name, and nobody will know who you are, and you can get to know them first. I said, the hell with that. I put everything in there. I put my name first and last. I put why I put my name. I put a picture of myself with my ostomy and the belt that covers up the ostomy, and I just went with it. And I expected there to be less activity. I expected people to uh, get no likes at all. Maybe they're like, I don't want to even take a chance. I mean, I don't know this guy from anything. And why would I even want to even entertain the idea? I don't even know what I'm getting myself into. But I found that the opposite happened. I've gotten more likes, or maybe the same amount. It hasn't changed. I'll put it that way. It hasn't changed. Whether it's more or less, it's around the same. So it really didn't change anything. And I wasn't so fearful because what it is, but I wanted to test it. I wanted to run the experiment and see, does it change anything? And what I think it does is it allows me to have a way to weed out who I don't belong with and who I do. Because if I belong with somebody, it's not going to matter. And if it does matter to them, then they just weren't the right person for me. Now, I'm not saying it's fun. I'm not saying that rejection's a good time, because it's not. Nobody likes it. But I have now decided the route that I'm going to go is I'm just going to let it all out and tell people exactly what I am. And that's the package you get. If you like some of it, you don't have to like 100% of who I am. I don't think anybody, even people who are married for 50, 60 years, I don't think they like everything about the person they're with. There are things that annoy them and things that they say, well, I wish he or she wouldn't do that. So no one's going to be a complete 100% package for you, but we're all a package. And part of my package is coming with the bag, and I've defeated mental illness. Now, is it going to be gone forever? No, it's not going to disappear. It's not going to be, I'm going to constantly have to fight it, but I'll keep fighting it. I'm not giving up. And that's the most important thing. Last year at this time, I'm not sure I could say that. I would not be able to say that, but it's a different time, different treatment. So I have heard arguments again on both sides. You should be upfront and be forward with it, or you should not give them a chance to reject you at first. Let them get to like you. Then when they like you, then you could tell them about whatever it is you got to tell them. And obviously with ostomy, if you go on 4 or 5 dates and things progress and there's going to be some intimacy, you have to let them know before that happens. I mean, I don't think that's fair. Now, some ostomy patients will say, well, I get to decide when I'm going to let it out and tell people. I get to decide. Well, I don't know if you do. I think you get to decide up until you get to the point where it's going to be noticeable. I don't think you could keep that from someone, or at least not get into the position where they see it for the first time and then they have to make a knee-jerk decision. Do they continue with this, or do they say, look, you weren't upfront with me. You should have told me ahead of time. In my judgment, it doesn't have to necessarily be the first date, but you got to get it in there before anything becomes physical. You don't want to spring that on somebody in that situation. And then I was thinking about other things. What about folks who are transgendered? Now, I don't have a problem with somebody being transgendered. I'm fine with it. I know some people who are transgendered. But do you have the responsibility to be upfront with a dating partner if you're transgendered? And I think you do. I know that might be controversial, but if I would be upset if someone who was a man and became a woman did not let me know that and allowed me to think that they were the other gender. And then when I became closer to them, all of a sudden say, well, by the way, I am transgender. Now, some people are totally the opposite of what I just said. They'll say, well, that's their decision. They're the ones who get to decide whether they tell you or not, and when they tell you or not. That's a slippery slope. I don't know what the answer is. To me, the answer is you have to be upfront about something like that. And if the person's okay with it, they're okay with it. And now you don't have to worry about it anymore. But if they're not okay with it, that's their choice. Just like me with the ostomy. If somebody says, look, I know you have an ostomy, I can't deal with that. That's something that's just not on my radar. I can't do it. Well, I can't get angry at them for that. I can't say, you're shallow. How could you dare do that? No, I mean, that's the decision that they have to make. So, what is honest? When is disclosure necessary? Is it different if somebody has children? If they don't, well, I mean, if you don't ask and they don't tell you that they have children, who's at fault? Yeah, of course, if you ask if somebody who you're going to potentially date, if say, do you have children? And they say no, then obviously they're at fault because they're lying. But if you don't ask and they don't tell, is anybody wrong? Lie of omission? It's not an easy, and I say this almost every week. This show is not about the answers to the questions. It's about the questions. I don't know the answers. I don't know. I can give you my opinion. I give my opinion. And my opinion for me may be different than what it would be for someone else. And that's all right. That's okay. I have decided that because I don't have the ability to hide what I am and how I am, I'm upfront about it. And I want to tell people about it. I made that decision 10 years ago when I first had my surgery, and I said, this is what I want to do. And if I don't do it, I'm going to feel like I did not use I don't want to say tragedy because it's not really a tragedy, but the unfortunate hand that I was dealt, which stunk. I mean, nobody wants to be told that they have a chronic illness, and nobody wants to be told that that chronic illness is becoming potentially colon cancer. Nobody wants to hear that. I sure did not want to hear that. A 40-year-old, 39-year-old, no, I just turned 40, 40-year-old who's in fantastic shape, working out constantly, just doing everything he can do, is to hear that you're going to have this kind of surgery is tough, really tough, because you think about all the things that might not happen anymore. Will I be able to play hockey again? Will I be able to lift weights again? All those things. And if those things did come back, I'm able to lift weights until a car accident in September, but I've been able to lift weights up until then. Hopefully, if I heal up, come back and do it again. 51 years old, so it'll be a little harder, but I'm trying to stay hopeful. So did I make the right decision 10 years ago? Yeah, I made the right decision. I made the right decision. And the consequences of that decision are that I have to be open. I chose to be open. You can't go halfway. Either you go through the door or you don't. You can't say, well, I want to be open about this part of it, but not about this part. I mean, I guess you can do that, but to me, it's either all the way or it's nothing. And I chose all the way. Other things that you might think about. Do you have to disclose that you were married before if you're divorced? Now, I think eventually you do, but when do you do it? Do you do it immediately before the first date? Do you mention it on the first date? Do you wait a month? What if you're a widow or widower? When do you disclose that? Some people won't date someone who's a widow or a widower. They feel uncomfortable. And again, that's not shallow. Somebody might say, well, that's really shallow. How could they not give somebody a chance and just make a judgment? Well, that's not shallow. That's a deal breaker for them. Just like kids are a deal breaker for other people. That's a decision. Some women may be turned off by a bald head and a beard. Other women may like that. They may say, "Oh, I like that look." It's not shallow. That's what their thoughts are. You can't change that. You like what you like. Whether it's if you're not dating somebody because of their ethnicity, because you don't like a certain group, that's bad. That's something that is wrong. But if somebody said, "Look, Justin, you're Italian, you're too dark. Your beard is too dark, your skin is too dark. I prefer really light skinned guys with red hair." That's not bad. That's not shallow. That's what they like. I went out with a girl in November, and we had a few dates, and it was okay. But one of the things that bothered me was she wanted to know why everything was why. Why do you lift weights? And I had just gotten out of the gym. I just had the car accident. Had I not been in the car accident, I would have still been lifting. And I told her, I said, well, I started when I was 16 and I liked it. And I liked it that I could put something into it and see results, right? So I could go to the gym, I could work out. And then within a couple of weeks, couple of months, couple of years, you look different. You are in good shape. Your heart's better. Your lungs are better. You look nicer. I don't know what this is with, guys especially can't say that they want to look better. Why would you not want to look better? Why is it shallow for a man to say, I want to look my best? It's not shallow. Yet that seems to be the thing. Oh, this guy flexes, or this guy takes a video of himself in the gym. I did that. So do a lot of guys who lift weights, and women, which they should. You're putting in the time. You're putting in the effort. You're doing something that it doesn't make you better than anybody else, but it does make you have a level of discipline that's pretty cool. It doesn't matter if you're ripped and shredded. I mean, there are guys that I lifted with that were way better built than I was. Didn't change that I was well built. But that's what do we have to tell? And like I was saying with this woman, why do you want to lift weights? Why do you want to have muscles? Why do you're if I lay down on your chest, you're bumpy. It's like, okay, I get it. If that's not what you're looking for, that's fine. I said, and I literally said this. I said, well, find somebody who is built like what you want. And I use the term dad bod, which again is okay. There are women that I know that say they don't like the muscular look. They like the dad bod look with a little bit of belly and some fat on the arms and on the chest. If they like that, there's nothing wrong with it. That's okay. But I'm not going to shoehorn myself into that because somebody wants me to be that. Either you take the package as it is, or you pass and say, no, I want something else. I'm not into this. And I noticed that I spent a lot of time in that quote relationship, and it wasn't really a relationship. It was just a very short time, but I was explaining myself. And then I was mad at myself for explaining myself. I was saying things like, yeah, but this is why I do it. And yeah, in the beginning, it might have been started due to insecurity, and went through the whole thing. And then I'm a half an hour in, almost 48 minutes into this conversation. And I finally said, why am I doing this? Why am I explaining this? I don't owe an explanation. Nobody does. I was annoyed. I don't want to say I was angry. I'm not going to say that it didn't make me a little agitated, because it did. It's like, why do I have to keep explaining? And then the more questions, it is what it is. I decided that's how I want to be built. Period. Some people will like it, some people won't. It's okay. Some people don't like the way I think, the way my views, political views on social justice, views on morals, views on parenting, whatever it is. Some people have different views, and that's, again, okay. But I can't change my own thoughts and feelings and the way I want to live because some people think it's not appropriate for them. If it's not appropriate for them, it's okay. Do it your way. You don't have to do it my way. But with that said, I don't have to conform to anybody else's standards. I don't. And anybody watching the show, you don't either. You don't have to answer to anyone unless you do something that is completely immoral, in which case then you do, or illegal. Yeah, then you have to answer. But if I'll give you an example. I never believed in spanking my children. Never once. Not one time did I put my hands on my kids. And I had a lady that I knew from an older generation. She was in her 70s. I was in my 30s with my kids. And she said, well, then you don't discipline your children. Your children are going to run amok and they're never going to learn discipline. And I said, so you're telling me that the only way to discipline my kids is to hit them? She said, well, if you don't, you're not disciplining your kids. And what I came back with was, well, if that's the only way you know how to do it, then maybe you should look into other ways of disciplining that might be a little harder and might take a little longer, but actually are more effective in the long run. Now, is she going to change her mind? No. Mm-mm. She's gonna have the same attitude that she has now. And if that works for her, okay. It doesn't work for me. That's another thing. It's a little different when you're dating at 51 versus when you're dating at 21. When you're 21, you got to worry about what raising kids with another person is going to be like. If I don't believe in corporal punishment, but I met a girl at 21 who believes in corporal punishment, and we can't decide who's going to, which side we're going to take, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. When you're 51, you don't have to worry about raising kids. So if you go out with somebody and they say, well, I spanked my kids. But I didn't. But that doesn't matter because we're not going to have kids together. So it's a different dynamic completely when you're middle-aged and higher than that, which I am. I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying don't be forthright. And I'm not saying there is a specific time that you have to tell people what it is you need to tell them or what it is they should know. But you have to think about it from not only your perspective, but from their perspective. I tried to think about that. What would it be like if I had no idea what an ostomy was? Never heard of it before. Never seen it before. I have no idea what it is. And I go out on a date and a woman says to me, I'm an ostomy patient. I like to think, and I don't know for sure. I'm not in that position. I'm on the other side. I like to think that I would say, really, tell me a little bit more about it. What's it like? How does it affect your everyday life? What is it exactly? I can't tell you 100% that I would do that. I might run. I don't know. Not in that position. I'm in the other side. I, but I hopefully would say, what is this? How does it work? And then I would find out that it's really not that life altering. Yeah, it's a different way to excrete, feces, but it's not dramatic. It's not something that, um, when you walk down the street, nobody knows. I mean, if they know me, they know because I'm open about it. But nobody can look at me and say, "Oh, that guy's got an ostomy." Now, would I be upset if I was on multiple dates and we were going to have an intimacy and I wasn't told ahead of time and all of a sudden, presto, there it is? Yeah, I probably would be upset about that. But you just sprung this on me as a shock. That's a lot different than saying, listen, I want to tell you about my medical. And I know it's hard for people to talk about those things. I get it. I get it. Same thing with transgender, right? I mean, I would think, because I'm not in that position, but if I was transgender, my fear would be if I met somebody that I really liked and I wanted to be with them, my fear would be that as soon as I told them I was transgender, they would not want to have part of that relationship. I'm assuming that's what it would be like. But you gotta look at the other person's side too. You have to protect yourself, but they also have to be protected too. I don't think it's fair for somebody to start a relationship with you and then after 4 or 5 dates when things start to progress and you think, wow, this is really a great relationship. I think I'm really into this person. And then they say, well, by the way, I'm transgender. Does that matter? Well, I think for most people it'll matter. Regardless of whether people want to admit it or not. I don't think it's homophobic or if it's prejudice or anything that you would say that you'd want to date somebody who's cisgendered the opposite gender. I do. I would not be comfortable with dating someone who was male. I would prefer somebody who was born female. That's a preference. But I should be able to make that decision. And that's what I'm doing with the ostomy stuff and the mental health stuff. Again, mental health. Yes, I was in a psych ward in July and August last year. Now, for some people, that's a no right off the bat. And there's nothing wrong with those decisions. They might say, look, I just don't want to have anything to do in a relationship like that. I could be friends with somebody, just like I could be friends with somebody who's transgendered. I don't care. We could go out, hang out. We could have, dinner together. We could go out to lunch, whatever. That's fine. But I don't want a physical relationship in that setting. Well, somebody might say the same thing about me with mental illness or with the back. It's okay. They get the right to make that decision. I don't get the right to say to them, well, you're a bad person if you can't just overlook it. If you can't, you can't. Heather said something really nice. Going to a psych ward means, yeah, you took care of yourself. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. And that's how I look at it too. Uh, I made a decision to go there myself because I knew that I needed it. See, I wasn't the best man that I could be. I wasn't the best father I could be. I wasn't the best friend I could be. I wasn't the best son I could be. I wasn't the best brother I could be because I was damaged. So I went and got help. One of the things I feared before I went to the hospital was if I go to this hospital, no matter what, I'm branded as somebody who's, quote, crazy. And I'll never get out from under it. That's what's going to happen. People are going to think, he's crazy, he's dangerous. But you know what? At the end of the day, it was the smartest decision I ever made. It was now I'm thriving. I'm doing well. I got my business back moving again. Is it back to where it was? No, it's not. But it'll get there. Am I disappointed that I can't get in the gym? And I'm disappointed that I've lost a lot of muscle over the last 6 months? Yes, of course. You don't want to lose anything, especially when you worked hard to gain things. But a year ago at this time, I wasn't doing well at all. And it wasn't crazy. I was depressed. I was anxious. A lot of things were happening at the same time, losing family members, getting a divorce, leaving a house that I was in for 20 years, the business not doing as well. My charity was struggling. All these things laying on top of each other, one after the other. It's going to break it down a little bit. And I know people, and I will never tell you who they are, but I know some famous people, and a few of them have been in the mental institution as well. They've been in a psych ward for depression, anxiety, not for anything dangerous. It's not, are there people who have mental illness that are dangerous? Of course there are. Absolutely. I met some when I was in the hospital. They weren't bad people. They were just sick people. But they were dangerous. You had to be careful. They had to be guards that watched them. I mean, it was really, or they could be a danger to other people, but also to themselves. But most of the people in there were not dangerous at all. They were like me. They were just broken and they needed healing. And that's what the place is for. Heather says, anyone who thinks that they've never struggled with mental illness is in denial if they haven't. Yes. Everybody gets a cold. Everybody gets a stomach flu. Everybody gets ear infection, whatever, you name it, the little things, right? If people are honest with themselves, they've all had illness, mental illness. Every one of us, all of us, in one way, shape, or form. Now, I'm not saying that it was debilitating for everyone, because some people are able to fight through it. Just like if when I had colitis, if I got a stomach virus, it probably puts me in the hospital because I would dehydrate. I'd be very sick. I wouldn't be able to kick it, and I'd have to get IVs and all kinds of stuff. In fact, a few years ago, probably 6-7 years ago, I collapsed from dehydration because I had a stomach bug and couldn't keep anything down, and I wound up dehydrating and collapsing. Had some kidney damage, and it was reversible. They gave me IVs. But my point is that some people are a little more vulnerable than others. I obviously was a little more vulnerable. Now, in my defense, there were a few things that, as I mentioned before, that happened on top of each other. And at some point, everybody's got a breaking point, and I found mine. Heather says it's mainly about support. Yeah, it is. In fact, I still talk to the people who I was in the hospital with. I got their phone numbers, and I message them once in a while and say, how's everybody doing? And try to be supportive for them still going forward, not just when we're in the hospital together, but also as we continue through life. We had a shared experience. We were all together in a place where everybody needed a pick-me-up, and the staff did it, but so did all of us. We picked each other up. But all of these things, you have to decide. You can't hide them forever, right? You can't hide my mental illness because it's out there. I can't hide any of the ostomy stuff because it's out there. I wrote a book. I didn't publish it yet. It's been forever that I've been trying to get this done, and it's just one thing after the other kind of holds it back. But eventually I'll publish the book. Once I publish the book, anybody who reads it is going to know that I've struggled with mental illness, and I've struggled with ulcerative colitis and am an ostomy patient. It's a choice that I made. Was it the right choice? For me, it was. For somebody else, maybe not. But you have to decide for yourself. Like I said, and I say it all the time, the show is not about answers, it's about questions. I don't have the answers. I may have the answers for myself. But even then, some of them are not that cut and dry. Some of them are, you weigh the options. And I played blackjack, or at least I did when I was younger. And, blackjack's all about playing the odds. What are the odds? If a dealer's showing 6, you got to assume it's a 16. If you're showing a 2 and it's a 12, you have a 10, you got to stick. Your gut feeling is, well, I'm so far away from 21. Yeah, but you're playing the odds. You're playing that the dealer is going to bust. So it doesn't matter if you have a 12. It doesn't matter if you have an 18. It doesn't make any difference. If they bust, they bust. You win. You got to play the odds. So in my thinking, from being a public figure, and again, not a celebrity, not somebody that everybody knows, but if you look me a very quick Google search, you'll know pretty much everything. You'll know my phone number, you'll know my address, you'll know my health history, and I'm okay with that. I put it out there. I'm the one who did it. But when do you disclose in a dating situation? If you're not me, if you're a more private person, when do you do it? Only you can make that decision. All right, my friends, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show this week. Some comments came in. I really appreciate that. And I just hope that everybody continues to do well and just be comfortable with where you are, who you are. It's not always easy. I get that. It can be tough. But in the long run, it's the way to go. All right. I will see you next week in the same place. Have a great rest of the week. Enjoy your holiday if you celebrate. And be well.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to tracycramperkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.